now that I've seen this a number of times, you've said there would be no movie without Stephanie, as you call her, Lady Gaga, and you're right. And obviously, when you two met, there was an instant connection there, and that connection survives to this day. Did you ever even talk to anyone else, any actors, any singers about doing this role, or was it kind of like you met her and then conversation over?
When Clint Eastwood first approached me about talking about potentially doing the movie, Beyonce was attached to it, um, and then that was the sort of the journey, and then I thought about one other person, but then I sort of just put it away, and I thought maybe I was never going to make it, and then I saw her, and we talked about this. I was at this cancer benefit at Sean Parker's house with my mother. Because I was starting a foundation because my father had passed away from cancer, and the last performance was Lady Gaga singing a cover of La Vie en Rose, and it just completely floored me, and I was like in this sort of state of euphoria driving home, and that night I woke up the next day and I called her agent. I said, is there any way that she would meet with me? Because I think that she might be perfect for this movie. And then she was kind enough to meet with me, and then that's how it started. And then once I actually met her, because I didn't really know her, I didn't even really know what she looked like, and but really, I didn't know what her eyes looked any of that, yeah, and then it was just right away. I thought, oh my gosh, first of all, she's an incredible human being, so present and kind and warm and charismatic, and then she seemed to really jive with the story that I wanted to tell. And then it started, and then that was it. And then I was completely had blinders on, and there was no movie without her.
Sam, he brought you back after you thought you had wrapped.
He did.
What
I
happened
had
there?
rapped. I mean, it wasn't even a matter of thinking it. I had rapped.
So how did that conversation go?
I had a text. It came to me via text from Bradley. We texted a lot off and on through. I kind of came and went, obviously, as I did in the show, and. I got a text after I'd rapped, and Bradley said, what do you think about this? And I thought, holy shit, I like that idea a lot.
And what you're talking about is
it was the scene with Stephanie in the end. And initially it was to be Dice, I believe, her dad, that was going to come and talk to her, and comfort her. And Bradley, for whatever reason, decided it needed to be Bobby, and I'm going to be forever beholden to him and forever grateful that he made that decision, because it was one of my favorite moments for me in this journey.
That great moment where Bradley's character gets out of the truck, has that wonderful line about how he idolized you, and then there's that great moment where we see you backing up, and it's filled with emotion, but it was also a bit of a logistical nightmare with your getting the camera operators to sit in the right way, right?
Well, I mean, everything's a logistical nightmare in this movie because of budget constraints and time. But that's sort of we were just talking about. Out of necessity comes opportunity, and ideas and creativity. And the thing that Maddie and I always talked about, even from the beginning, and then every day, is how can we get the composition we want while also allowing the actors to feel completely free. And we often did long takes. So what we did was, we had two cameras in the back of the truck, and we talked about I'm gonna leave, and then I think Maddie, you were A, so you went down, and then Chris got Sam, so Chris was able to get Sam. Scott's got Sam, so we just created an environment so that Sam could be as free as possible while at the same time getting the shot that we wanted.
In a general sense, Matthew, how did you go about achieving the sense of intimacy that really comes across in the film?
Well, I just want to say one thing about that moment. Yeah. Is I was on Bradley when he got out of the car, and Scott, our camera operator, was on Sam. And so I didn't see Sam's performance. So I went down to the house that we shot at, that was Jack Bain's house. Went to the video playback, and I watched it. And when I saw that second take, I ran over to Scott, and I said, why the fuck didn't you tell me that happened? You didn't say anything. And I was like, it's probably one of the most magical things I've ever seen. Like the greatest reaction I think I've ever seen as a cameraman, as long as I've been there. But Anyway. I mean, intimacy is it's equal parts performance and proximity. That's it. So it's like we spend the beginning of every scene. Bradley and I would spend every moment trying to figure out where the right place to put the camera was, not how many shots we needed, but where the camera needed to be. And if we felt like we needed another thing, we'd get another thing. And it was a liberating way to work because there was a singular vision.
Erin, for you, what was the story you were trying to tell through wardrobe? Because it's always fascinating to hear the costume designers talk about how clothes evolve throughout the arc of a story.
Sure. I think the thing that was most unique about this movie was that I had to listen to music in order to figure out what to put our actors in, and that changed completely. I don't know if you remember, Bradley, but we started off, and I wanted to do leather pants, Jim Morrison, because they're awesome. And then
I burned
realized,
those photos.
yeah, until we found Jackson Maine, we found him. But I think it was hearing the music, listening to the music, and finding the character, finding the in to the character that way.
Jay, one of the things that Bradley told me about some of the musical scenes is that he wanted it to have a documentary look and feel to it. And you're definitely reminded of The Last Waltz and other great film documentaries. How, if at all, did that impact your work as the editor? Did that affect the choices that you made?
Well, Bradley shot the concerts with the point of view that you're always on stage with the performer looking out at the audience. You never have a camera that's photographing from the audience's point of view. So once that decision is made and that a sort of conceit is established, it meant that you were gonna the cutting was almost easy, because instead of having 18 cameras like you'd think on a concert film, you had 2, and so the intent was always to keep the shots as long as they'd play, and stay with the performer and get out of the way of the performance, so that you just felt it.
What's the one thing when you watch this movie where you look at your own work in it and you think, I cannot believe we pulled that off?
I think the first moment we get to see Allie not on stage or not, sort of plain Allie, was the most fun, most hard, most challenging and great moment for a lot of us.
When she's watching him do the solo moment with the guitar and
exactly,
the club.
And they're about to go out, and it was sort of establishing who is Allie and what kind of girl is she, and where does she come from, and what is she interested in, and how strong does she feel about herself, and how does she feel in the world, how does she move in the world. And I know that was a really cool moment for us to figure out. And Karen and I spent weeks while our daughters were playing over in the side at each other's houses, just looking at tons of pictures of musicians and old musicians and ex-musicians, and just trying to figure out who this girl was.
How about the rest of you?
For me, it's really, I think one of the first conversation I ever had with Bradley, like I said, we met quite cold. We just I just get to LA and I'm like, hi, and then we just hit it off. It was really beautiful. But I think the biggest thing was just we didn't start getting very specific. It was more about how it was going to feel. And I think for me, it was a lot of the things I didn't do. So I thought it was very important for the authenticity of those concerts. I actually was, I had a tour manager in my life for a while, a long time ago, and did a lot of backstage, just being a person there on the backstage. And I thought it was very important for that to be extremely authentic. So often we went to places we went to Coachella, we went to Stagecoach, we went to Glastonbury, we went to venues around Los Angeles where they're really different, really beautiful, and we used them for what they were, which and we found people to help in my departments to create that. We actually had a tour manager who worked with us, who's in the film, and he's,
Most of the crew.
yeah, Jack Main's
Maddie's in
band
the
and
movie.
his
Erin-
guitar
I
tech
saw
and
Maddie
everybody.
taking the
They're
picture.
all the real deal. They're all work in the industry. So we were very connected to the industry, which I think for me was like important, and I think it shows in the film. It's
Definitely
great.
shows. What's the most miraculous aspect of it for you?
I mean, the fact that we all did it, quite honestly. Yeah. And that all these people entrusted themselves to me is very, I don't know if I'll ever get over that. But specifically, every day was hard. Every day was hard. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And I think that's why it made us all have to dig it deeper. It was definitely deeper than I've ever dug before. And I thought I dug very deep before, but not like this. But there's something about jumping onto a set that you have no control over. And I love, she's the real deal. And the movie had to be as authentic as she is. And certainly the concert scenes. And Karen's right. I mean, she was dogmatic from day one. And we certainly looked at other options. And she was stalwart in saying no. No, in a great way. No, it was, and thank God. And so it's like, okay, we got to jump on real stages. And Maddie and I flew to London with Steve Marr, the sound guy, just three of us. And we jumped on the stage at Glastonbury, and we had 4 minutes. And that was probably the most terrifying and exhilarating 4 minutes. Most of all because when we got there, we realized that the band had just played. There were 9 people on the stage, so there were 9 microphones, and that would have been like a labyrinth for the camera operator. So we're like throwing the mics down, and they're yelling at us, so you only have 4 minutes, and then we just jumped on in front of 80,000 people and sang 2 songs and got out of there. And it was really crazy. And we did the same. The opening of the movie is Stagecoach. We had 8 minutes. And that one we had really talked about, and the idea of I really wanted that. Remember the shot with in between the 2 guitars, and trying to get our compositions within 8 minutes was so wonderful to watch the crew, all of us work together as a unit. That's the thing I love so much, is that we all have equal parts in this movie. It's like and also the people that aren't here, Mike Sexton and Shelley Ziegler, and so many people. Like, it really was a unit. A unit made this movie. That's why this art form is so wonderful. It's about community and collaboration, and everybody is a voice. And that's the thing I just want to keep doing.
And who was the nice musical artist who yielded 4 minutes of his set to you?
Chris Christoph.
It's just too perfect. Guys, congratulations on the movie. I'm so happy you all were here.